This story is titled, Exposed My Aunt and Cousin's Boyfriend's Affair at Her Birthday Party. Hey everyone! The channel's been slowing down a bit, and I spend so much time finding these stories for you. If you enjoy the content, please hit that subscribe button. It means the world and helps keep this journey going strong. Let's grow together. Now let's start the video. OP starts by saying, my cousin Lily's 21st birthday party was supposed to be a fun celebration, but it turned into something none of us will ever forget. She had invited the entire family to her parents' house, a spacious place that easily accommodated everyone. My mom insisted we arrive early to help set up, so I got to see most of the family as they came in. The atmosphere was cheerful at first, with everyone bustling around, catching up and laughing. Among the last to arrive was my Aunt Sarah, who was 46 and recently divorced. Sarah has always been the golden child of the family. My grandparents adore her, and she somehow always manages to shift the spotlight onto herself, no matter the occasion. She walked in with her usual confidence, greeting everyone as if she were the star of the show. When Sarah reached Lily and her boyfriend Ryan, I noticed something odd. Her hug with Ryan was different. It wasn't just a casual hello. She lingered for a beat too long, and the way she smiled at him felt off. I didn't say anything at the time, but it left me unsettled. The party continued as usual. Guests were eating, laughing, and chatting in groups. Lily seemed happy, basking in the attention and enjoying her milestone birthday. When it was time to cut the cake, everyone gathered around and sang happy birthday. It was a sweet moment, and for a while it felt like everything was normal. Then Sarah approached me with a favor. She handed me her phone and asked if I could take pictures of the party. You're so much better at this than I am, she said with a laugh. I don't enjoy being in pictures, so I didn't mind helping out. As I was snapping photos, a notification popped up on her phone. I didn't mean to look, but it was hard to ignore when it lit up right in front of me. It was from someone named Ryan, and the message read, I can't wait until the party is over. My stomach dropped. I clicked on the notification before I could stop myself, and what I saw made my heart race. The messages were flirty, with heart emojis and references to sneaking off together. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. For a few minutes, I just stood there, trying to make sense of it. Could it be a coincidence? Was it possible there was another Ryan? But deep down, I knew the truth. The messages, the hug earlier, it all added up. Not long after, Sarah called out to Ryan, asking him to help her bring Lily's gift from the car. She made a big deal about it, saying it was heavy and needed 2 people. Everyone in the room thought it was a thoughtful gesture, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. I decided to follow them, staying far enough back so they wouldn't notice me. As I stepped outside into the backyard, I saw them by Sarah's car. The light was dim, but it was enough for me to see them clearly. They weren't just standing there, they were kissing. It wasn't a quick peck or an accidental brush of the lips. It was a full-on, passionate kiss. My breath caught in my throat, and for a second, I froze. Then I remembered I had my phone in my hand. I quickly snapped a picture, my hands shaking the entire time. I hurried back inside before they could see me. My mind was racing. What should I do? Should I tell Lily right away, or wait until later? Part of me wanted to confront Sarah and Ryan on the spot, but I didn't want to cause a scene without proof. I kept my distance for the rest of the evening, watching them from across the room. They came back inside a few minutes later, laughing and acting like nothing had happened. The sheer audacity of it made my blood boil. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. I knew I had to tell Lily. She deserved to know, and I couldn't sit there pretending everything was fine. When it was my turn to give her my gift, I pulled her aside into the kitchen. Lily, I said quietly, I need to show you something. She looked at me curiously, her smile fading as she saw the expression on my face. I handed her my phone and showed her the picture. Her face went pale, and she stared at the screen for what felt like forever. Is this real? She whispered, her voice trembling. I nodded. I'm so sorry, Lily. I didn't want you to find out like this, but I couldn't keep it from you. Her hands shook as she handed the phone back to me. Then, without saying another word, she stormed into the living room. I followed her, not sure what was about to happen. She walked straight up to Sarah and Ryan, her voice trembling with anger. How could you do this to me? She yelled, holding up her phone with the picture. The room fell silent. All eyes turned to them as the tension became unbearable. Sarah's face twisted into a fake expression of shock. What are you talking about, sweetie? She asked, her tone dripping with feigned innocence. Lily didn't back down. This! She screamed, shoving the phone in Sarah's face. Explain this! Ryan stammered, his face turning bright red. It's not what it looks like. he said weakly. It was just one kiss. One kiss? Lily shouted. You think that makes it okay? Sarah stepped in, her voice rising in pitch. Lily, calm down. You're making a scene? It wasn't like that? But Lily wasn't having it. You're my aunt. How could you do this to me? The room erupted into chaos. People were yelling, trying to calm Lily down, while Sarah kept denying everything. Ryan looked like he wanted to disappear, refusing to say another word. Eventually, the party ended in a mess. Ryan left with Sarah, which said everything we needed to know about where his loyalty lay. As I left with my parents, I couldn't help but feel a mix of emotions. Anger at Sarah and Ryan for their betrayal, sadness for Lily, and a nagging sense of guilt for being the one to expose it all. Little did I know, this was only the beginning. The morning after Lily's birthday party, I woke up to absolute chaos in the family group chat. Messages were flying back and forth, with everyone weighing in on what had happened. Most of the family had heard about the confrontation, though the details were already starting to get twisted. Some people were outraged at Sarah and Ryan. Others thought I had handled it poorly. I wasn't ready for the onslaught of opinions before I'd even had my coffee. My mom walked into the kitchen, her face tight with frustration. Sarah called me, she said flatly. I rolled my eyes. Let me guess. She's playing the victim? She says you humiliated her in front of everyone and ruined Lily's birthday? Mom replied, as if she was waiting for me to admit to some huge wrongdoing. Ruined Lily's birthday? I shot back, almost choking on my toast. How about the part where she was making out with Lily's boyfriend? Or does that not count? Mom sighed, looking uncomfortable. I'm just saying, maybe you could have waited until after the party to bring it up. It was supposed to be a happy day. I set my coffee down, my patience wearing thin. So you think I should have just smiled and pretended everything was fine while Sarah and Ryan kept sneaking around? Lily deserved to know the truth, and she deserved to know it then and there. Mom didn't respond, but I could tell she wasn't happy with my answer. That was fine. I wasn't happy with her either. Meanwhile, Lily was struggling to process everything. She texted me later that day, thanking me for telling her, but admitting she felt overwhelmed. It's like I don't even know who Ryan is anymore, she wrote. How could he do this to me? And with Sarah of all people? I tried to comfort her. But what do you even say in a situation like that? You're not to blame for any of this, I replied. They both made selfish choices, and you deserve better than that. She told me she'd been up all night replaying everything in her head, trying to figure out if there had been any signs she'd missed. Looking back, there were moments that felt off, she said, like how Sarah would always find excuses to hang out with us, even when it didn't make sense. But I never thought, she's my aunt. I didn't know what to say. It was a horrible thing to realize that someone you trusted had been betraying you all along. As if things weren't messy enough, Ryan decided to reach out to Lily. He sent her a long text, trying to explain himself, claiming the kiss was a one-time mistake, and that Sarah had come on to him. Lily showed me the message, and I could see the anger boiling over in her words as she replied to him. One-time mistake? She wrote. You've been sneaking around with my aunt for who knows how long. Don't insult me by pretending this was just a spur-of-the-moment thing. Ryan's excuses only made things worse. He refused to admit to anything beyond what had already been exposed. And when Lily demanded to see his phone, he ghosted her. He's such a coward, Lily said when we talked later. If he really had nothing to hide, he'd prove it. But the fact that he won't, that says everything. Sarah, of course, wasn't staying quiet either. She'd apparently been calling half the family, trying to spin the story in her favor. My sister told me Sarah had called her, crying about how misunderstood she was. She kept saying she didn't mean for any of this to happen, my sister said. And then she tried to downplay it by saying that Lily and Ryan weren't that serious. Not that serious? I exclaimed. They were together for 5 years. How can she even say that with a straight face? She's desperate, my sister replied. She knows she messed up, but instead of owning it, she's trying to make herself look like the victim. The family was quickly dividing into two camps. On one side, there were the people who supported Lily and wanted nothing to do with Sarah or Ryan anymore. This included Lily's parents, a few cousins, and me. On the other side were the people who were trying to defend Sarah, saying she had made a mistake and didn't deserve to be cast out. My grandparents were firmly in Sarah's corner. They even called me directly to lecture me about how I'd handled things poorly at the party. You shouldn't have aired dirty laundry in front of everyone, my grandmother said sternly. Family matters should be handled privately. Privately? I repeated, incredulous. You mean like how Sarah privately betrayed Lily for years? Or does that not count? My grandfather chimed in. Sarah's going through a rough time with her divorce. We all make bad choices when we're vulnerable. Bad choices? I snapped. This wasn't a bad choice. This was a calculated betrayal. Stop making excuses for her. They didn't have much to say after that, but I knew their opinions weren't going to change. Sarah had always been their favorite, and they were determined to protect her no matter what. As for Lily, she was starting to make some tough decisions. She blocked both Sarah and Ryan on all social media, cutting them off completely. I don't care what excuses they come up with, she told me. I'm done with both of them. It wasn't an easy choice for her, especially when it came to Sarah. She's been in my life since I was born, Lily said. I grew up looking up to her. But now I can't even look at her without feeling sick. I told her she was doing the right thing, even if it hurt. Sometimes you have to put yourself first, I said. It's not about being cruel. It's about protecting your peace. By the end of the day, I felt drained. It was exhausting trying to keep up with all the drama, especially when some family members were still trying to pin the blame on me for exposing the truth. But despite everything, I didn't regret what I'd done. Lily deserved to know the truth. And if Sarah and Ryan had wanted to avoid the fallout, they shouldn't have betrayed her in the first place. As I lay in bed that night, I thought about how quickly everything had spiraled. The party had been meant to celebrate Lily's milestone, but instead, it had exposed the ugly truths lurking beneath the surface of our family. And the fallout wasn't over yet. The fallout from Sarah and Ryan's betrayal wasn't just limited to the family group chat, it was reshaping relationships in ways I hadn't anticipated. By the end of the week, it was clear that sides had been drawn, and there was no going back. Lily had gone completely no contact with Sarah and Ryan. She deleted their numbers, blocked them on social media, and told everyone in no uncertain terms that she didn't want to hear any defenses for their actions. For her, this wasn't just about a breakup. It was about reclaiming her dignity after years of misplaced trust. I spent 5 years with him, she told me during a phone call. Her voice was shaky, but there was steel underneath it. 5 years thinking we'd build a future together, and all along he was sneaking around with her. I can't believe I let them make a fool out of me for so long. You didn't let them do anything, I replied firmly. They're the ones who chose to lie and betray you. Don't blame yourself for their garbage behavior. Lily sighed. I know you're right, but it's hard not to feel stupid, you know? How did I not see this? I could hear the pain in her voice, and it made me angrier at Sarah and Ryan than I already was. They didn't just betray her, they destroyed her trust in the people she thought were closest to her. While Lily was working through her emotions, Sarah was in full damage control mode. She'd been calling family members nonstop, trying to salvage her reputation. My cousin Emma told me that Sarah had called her twice in one day, crying and pleading for understanding. She keeps saying she didn't mean for it to happen, Emma said. Like, what does that even mean? How do you accidentally carry on an affair for 3 years? She's just trying to avoid accountability, I said. She doesn't care about what she did. She only cares about how people see her now that it's out in the open. Emma nodded. Honestly, I'm done with her. If she thinks she can cry her way out of this, she's delusional. Meanwhile, Ryan had gone radio silent. After Lily blocked him, he disappeared from the group chat and stopped attending any family gatherings. I figured he was probably lying low, hoping the storm would blow over. But Lily's brother Ethan had other ideas. I ran into Ryan at the gym, Ethan told me one afternoon. I confronted him and he tried to act all apologetic, like he was the victim in all this. What did he say? I asked. He said Sarah manipulated him, Ethan replied, rolling his eyes. He claimed she was the one who came on to him, and he didn't know how to stop it. I let out a bitter laugh. Oh, please. He had 3 years to stop it. He knew exactly what he was doing. Ethan nodded. Exactly. I told him he was a coward, and that he'd better stay far away from Lily. He just kept saying, I didn't mean for it to happen. There it was again. The same tired excuse Sarah had been using. It was almost laughable how little effort they were putting into their apologies. The family was still deeply divided. My grandparents were firmly on Sarah's side, which wasn't surprising. They'd always seen her as the golden child who could do no wrong. She's still family, my grandmother said during a tense phone call. We all make mistakes, and we need to forgive her. She didn't make a mistake. She made a choice, I countered. And now she has to live with the consequences. My grandmother huffed. So you're just going to cut her out of your life? After everything she's done for you? I nearly laughed at that. Everything she's done for me? What has she done exactly? Because all I see is someone who betrayed her own niece and refuses to take responsibility for it. The call ended soon after that, with my grandmother still defending Sarah and me refusing to budge. Lily's parents, on the other hand, were fully in her corner. Her mom told me she'd been furious at Sarah for years, even before the affair came to light. Sarah's always been selfish, she said. This isn't the first time she's hurt someone in the family, but this is by far the worst. I don't think Lily will ever forgive her, and honestly, I don't blame her. Hearing that made me feel better, knowing Lily had solid support. It was hard enough dealing with a betrayal like this, but having people who believed in her made a world of difference. Forks. As for me, I was starting to feel the strain of being caught in the middle. I wasn't just dealing with the fallout from Sarah and Ryan's actions. I was also dealing with the family members who thought I'd overstepped by exposing them. You should have let Lily figure it out on her own, one of my uncles told me during a family dinner. It wasn't your place to get involved. I shot him a glare. So I should have just sat back and let them keep lying to her? Sorry, but I'm not that kind of person. He shrugged. Sometimes it's better to mind your own business. Minding my own business would have made me complicit, I replied firmly. Lily deserved to know the truth, and if that makes some people uncomfortable, too bad. The more I stood my ground, the more I realized who in the family I could actually count on. My sister was one of my biggest supporters, constantly reminding me that I'd done the right thing. You exposed the truth, she said. And now they're just mad they can't keep pretending everything's fine. Her words stuck with me. The truth had a way of making people uncomfortable, especially when it revealed things they didn't want to face. But I wasn't going to apologize for holding Sarah and Ryan accountable. By the end of the week, Lily told me she was starting therapy to work through her emotions. I don't want this to define me, she said. I've wasted enough energy on people who don't deserve it. I was proud of her for taking that step. It wasn't easy to rebuild after a betrayal like this, but she was determined to come out stronger. As for Sarah and Ryan, they'd become ghosts in the family. Sarah stopped showing up to gatherings, and Ryan disappeared entirely. It was like they both realized there was no salvaging their reputations, so they decided to stay out of sight. The lines in the sand were clear now. Those who sided with Sarah and Ryan were showing where their loyalties truly lay, and I had no interest in keeping ties with people who defended betrayal. This wasn't the outcome any of us wanted, but it was the one we were left with, and honestly, it was better this way. Lily deserved a fresh start, free from people who didn't value her. A few days after the family meeting, Sarah decided to confront me directly. I wasn't surprised. She'd been desperately trying to repair her image within the family, and since I'd been vocal about her betrayal, I figured I'd be her next target. What I didn't expect was for her to show up at my apartment unannounced. When I opened the door and saw her standing there, I almost closed it right in her face. "What do you want?" I asked flatly, not bothering to hide my annoyance. "I just want to talk," she said, her voice shaking. Her eyes were red like she'd been crying. But with Sarah, I never knew if it was real or for show. I stepped aside reluctantly, letting her in. She sat on my couch and immediately launched into a sob story about how sorry she was, how she never meant for any of this to happen, and how much she valued her family. "Look, I know what I did was wrong," she said, her voice trembling. "But I need you to understand. I was in a really bad place. My divorce was so hard on me, and Ryan, he was just there for me in a way no one else was." I crossed my arms and leaned against the wall, glaring at her. "So what? You decided it was okay to start hooking up with your niece's boyfriend because you were lonely? That's the excuse you're going with?" "It wasn't like that," she snapped, her voice rising. Then, catching herself, she softened. "It started as, I don't know, just talking. He was kind to me when I needed it most, and things got complicated. I never meant for it to go this far." I laughed bitterly. "Complicated? You carried on an affair for 3 years. That's not complicated, that's calculated. And let's be real, you didn't stop because you didn't want to. Don't act like you were some helpless victim in all of this." Sarah's tears intensified. She buried her face in her hands, sobbing loudly enough to make me roll my eyes. "You don't understand," she cried. "I've lost everything. The family hates me, Lily hates me. Even Ryan has stopped talking to me. I'm completely alone." "Good," I said bluntly. "You deserve to feel alone after what you did. You betrayed Lily in the worst way possible. And now you want sympathy because it's finally catching up to you? Not gonna happen." Her sobs turned into sniffles as she looked up at me with a pitiful expression. "You don't mean that," she said quietly. "We're family. You've always been like a niece to me. I need you on my side." That comment made my blood boil. If I'm like a niece to you, then why should I trust you? You betrayed Lily, your actual niece. If you can do that to her, what's stopping you from screwing over the rest of us? She didn't have an answer to that. Instead, she started pleading. "Please, I'm begging you. Help me fix this. I'll apologize to Lily, to everyone. I just need someone to believe that I'm not a bad person. You don't get to decide whether you're a bad person or not, I said coldly. Your actions define that, and your actions have been disgusting. Lily doesn't need your apologies. She needs distance. And honestly, so do I. Sarah shifted tactics then, trying to guilt trip me. You know, the family's falling apart because of this. Grandma and Grandpa are heartbroken. They've been crying about how no one wants to talk to me anymore. They're crying because they've spent decades enabling you, I shot back. You're their golden child. And they can't handle the fact that the rest of us are finally seeing through the facade. Her eyes narrowed. You think you're so righteous, don't you? You've never made a mistake in your life. Sure, I've made mistakes, I admitted. But I've never betrayed someone who trusted me. There's a big difference between screwing up and what you did. The conversation dragged on for nearly an hour, with Sarah alternating between crying, pleading, and trying to shift the blame. At one point, she even accused Lily of overreacting. Lily isn't perfect, you know, she said. She and Ryan had problems for years. Maybe if she'd been a better girlfriend, he wouldn't have turned to me. That was the final straw. Get out, I said, my voice low but firm. What? She said, looking genuinely shocked. You heard me, I said, pointing to the door. Get out of my apartment. Now. She stood up slowly, her tears starting up again. I didn't mean it like that. I'm just trying to explain. You're trying to justify the unjustifiable, I interrupted. You've spent this entire conversation making excuses, blaming everyone but yourself, and expecting me to forgive you because we're family. But guess what? Family doesn't treat each other the way you treated Lily. So go cry to someone else because I'm done. As she left, I felt a mix of emotions. Part of me was angry. Angry that she thought she could manipulate me into forgiving her. Angry that she refused to take real accountability for her actions. But another part of me felt relieved. For the first time, I realized I didn't owe her anything. Sarah's actions had consequences, and she was finally being forced to face them. It wasn't my job to fix her mess, and it definitely wasn't my job to make her feel better about what she'd done. Later that evening, I called Lily to tell her about the confrontation. She listened quietly as I recounted everything, and when I finished, she let out a bitter laugh. Typical Sarah, she said, always making it about herself. She tried to say you and Ryan had problems, I said, still fuming. As if that justifies anything. Lily sighed. Honestly, I don't even care what she thinks anymore. She can spin the story however she wants, but it doesn't change the truth. She's out of my life, and that's all that matters. I couldn't have agreed more. Sarah had burned every bridge, and no amount of tears or excuses could rebuild them. By the end of the night, I felt lighter. Confronting Sarah had been draining, but it also solidified my resolve. I wasn't going to let her manipulate me, and I wasn't going to let her rewrite the narrative to make herself look like the victim. Lily deserved people who would stand by her, not people who would turn a blind eye to betrayal. And if Sarah thought she could guilt her way back into our lives, she had another thing coming. This wasn't just about loyalty. It was about doing what was right. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like the family was finally starting to see that. After everything that had happened, Lily's heartbreak, Sarah's betrayal, and the family's division, it was time to move forward. At least that's what I kept telling myself. But the truth was, the aftermath of their actions still lingered like a dark cloud over everyone involved. For Lily, the road ahead was especially difficult. She decided to move out of her parents' house, wanting a fresh start away from the memories of Ryan and the constant chatter about Sarah. She found a small apartment closer to her job and threw herself into her work and hobbies. While Lily was taking steps to heal, Sarah had all but vanished from family gatherings. After our confrontation, she seemed to realize that most people weren't buying her excuses anymore. Even her staunchest defenders, like my grandparents, started to pull back as more details of her affair with Ryan came to light. It turned out that their relationship wasn't just a series of random hookups. Sarah had actively pursued Ryan, sending him gifts and even meeting him in secret during family events. When Lily's brother Ethan heard about this, he was livid. She used family gatherings as a cover for her affair, Ethan ranted during a phone call. She didn't just betray Lily, she made fools out of all of us. I couldn't argue with that. The more we learned about Sarah's behavior, the clearer it became that she had no regard for anyone but herself. As for Ryan, he disappeared entirely. Lily's dad heard through a friend that he'd moved out of town, likely to avoid the backlash. Good riddance, Lily said when I told her. He's someone else's problem now. Ryan's absence left a strange void, though. For years, he'd been a constant presence at family events, always by Lily's side. Now, his name was practically forbidden, a reminder of the pain he'd caused. The division in the family didn't heal overnight either. My grandparents were still trying to play mediator, but their efforts only made things worse. "We need to forgive Sarah," my grandmother said during a family call. "She's still family, and she's been through so much." "She's been through so much?" Lily's mom snapped. "Are you seriously more worried about her feelings than the people she hurt? She's lucky anyone is even speaking to her." The call ended abruptly, with neither side willing to budge. It was clear that the family would never be the same, and honestly, I was okay with that. My sister Emma was one of the few people who had been in my corner from the start. Over coffee one afternoon, she told me how proud she was of how I'd handled everything. "You didn't let them intimidate you," she said. "You stood up for what was right, even when it wasn't easy. That takes guts." "Thanks," I said, though I felt a twinge of doubt. "I just wish it hadn't caused so much division." Emma shook her head. "That division was already there. You just exposed it. People like Sarah don't break families. They just reveal the cracks that were already there." Her words gave me a sense of closure I hadn't realized I needed. Months passed, and slowly, the family adjusted to the new normal. Sarah remained on the outskirts, occasionally reaching out to people, but never truly repairing the relationships she'd damaged. Lily, on the other hand, was thriving, and that's where we are at right now.